Hello, hello. Welcome back to Loki's Librarian. If you are new, you're welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and on Sundays I do a thing called Books and Booze, where I review a book and mix up a cocktail. My last spooky book for the month of October is this one, Haunted Virginia City by Janice Oberding. The accompanying cocktail is a haunted graveyard, and this one is designed for two, and I almost halved it and decided, no, I'll just make the whole thing and, see where I go with it. It's a half cup of bourbon, 1/3 cup of maple syrup, 4 orange slices, 4 to 6 splashes of bitters, 1 sprig of rosemary. The bitters, she offers suggestions. It's not just Angostura bitters or Peychaud's bitters. She says, you can do a smoked bitters, you can do a citrus-based bitters, and she had a couple of suggestions on her website. If you can get rosemary bitters, great. I already had orange bitters on hand, so I went with the orange bitters, which should go nicely with the, already existing orange. So let's do this. Review's not very long, so I'm gonna, oh my God, maybe pop right into the cocktail if I can get the cork out. Jesus, there's a lot. I don't know, I'm just gonna use up all the rest of my, close enough. And I killed a bottle of bourbon today. Bummer. Bummer. Maybe I should have halved the recipe. So, this book certainly includes ghost stories. I'm going to start with that right off. But more than that, it was a brief history of Virginia City, Nevada. Brief because the book was only 142 pages long. I mean, I read it in like a day. And Virginia City was founded around 1859 with the discovery of silver. So the city predates the state of Nevada, which joined the Union October 31st, 1864, just in time to help elect President Lincoln for his second term. A 1/3 cup is basically between 2.5 and 3 ounces approximately. It's like 2.66 ounces. A lot of maple syrup. The story starts with the unfortunate Grosh brothers. It's the name of the section. Hosea and Ethan Allen Grosh, who had initially traveled to California in 1849 as part of the gold rush to the American River in Sacramento. So they were part of the original 49ers. Now, they had no luck in California, all right? It's fair. Basically, if you weren't part of that finders who found it, your chances were not awesome, believe it or not. It didn't stop people from rushing from all over the country to try and get to California to partake of the gold rush. I really should have pre-pilled the orange. Because it's not a very long cocktail, I could literally still be peeling this orange, I could literally still be peeling this orange by the time I'm done with the review. So let me peel this and then I'll come back. The Hosea and Ethan Allen Grosh, had no luck in California. So in 1852, there we go, they heard about gold in the western part of what was then Utah Territory, which is modern day Nevada. So in 1852, they headed east to Nevada, basically. Just over the Sierra Nevadas to Gold Canyon, or for ease, I'm just going to call it Nevada. It's because that's what it is now, so everybody knows it as that. It was still part of Utah at the time this all took place. So the Grosh brothers are in Nevada, and they are actually the ones who started to notice the bluish sludge being cast off as trash by the other miners, and they suspected it might be silver. They were very smart. They were intelligent men. They had, they were well-rounded. They had a bunch of books on like metallurgy and how to recognize different ores. Let's see here. So they, whoops. The problem is they didn't have any money, right, so to test their theory because, well, they first went to California and then came back to Nevada, and there's takes money to travel, so they didn't have enough money to really test this out. So they were pretty sure it was silver, and they were taking this sludge as much as they could off of everybody's hands. They were not fools about it. They played this very close to the vest until they could actually confirm silver. So they're like, yeah, we'll take it. We'll get it out of here. We'll charge you to haul the trash away, basically. Smart men, right? Let me shake this up. Since it is for two, we're going to jump into this with my one and then top off as needed, depending on how good it is. My large ice cube is back. Unfortunately, before they could confirm that it was silver, Hosea died on September 2nd, 1858. So about 6 years, they've been hoarding this stuff. He had blood poisoning following an unfortunate mishap where he struck his foot with a pickaxe. Ethan Allen was devastated. They had been best friends growing up. They were brothers. They had traveled all the way from wherever they came from. It was New York, Missouri. It was somewhere back east, obviously. So Ethan Allen paid his brother's creditors, then left his claim in the hands of a foreman friend, Henry Comstock. And Ethan Allen headed to California for the assay on the metal. They finally had enough money to get that tested and see, hey, is this silver? Are we right? And like the Donner Party before him, fell prey to severe winter storms, which resulted in bad frostbite. You don't just... From October on, heading over the Sierra Nevadas is a very risky proposition, even today, right? We have prone to snowstorms up there from October to like March, so it's always risky. Not so bad when you have a car and can make the drive in 2 hours, but when it takes weeks, he was screwed. He ended up with really bad frostbite, declined to amputation, and died of sepsis poisoning as a result of the frostbite in California on December 19th, 1858. Oh, that's sweet. It's all the maple syrup. Good flavor, though. Really good flavor. Now, Henry Comstock, he was not a complete fool. He recognized that opportunity was knocking on his door, and he immediately claimed the Grosch's stake for himself and went on to become famous for having discovered the Comstock lode. It's literally called the Comstock lode, not the Grosch lode, the Comstock lode. And as sad as the Grosch's story is, they do not actually appear to be ghosts on the Comstock. Comstock is, though. Henry Comstock, and that's interesting because what's interesting about it is he sold his claim for $10,000, which is an absolute pittance to the millions that the silver vein would eventually disgorge. I mean, it was an absolutely enormous silver vein running all through the Virginia City mountain range, Virginia foothills, Virginia highlands, whatever they call it. And he eventually killed himself in 1870 alone in a shack in Montana. So if he died in Montana, why would he haunt Nevada? And there's a supposition that people haunt where they die, but that's not necessarily true, is it? I mean, they could haunt anywhere they lived, theoretically, wherever they felt most soul-bound to, I guess. Guilt over his good fortune. I mean, it wasn't technically his find, but his name is the one that gets all the credit. He discovered nothing, but his name is historically attached to the greatest silver find in the nation's history. And this is a find, to put it in context, right? This find was so massive, it would have national implications. When I was reading the Grover Cleveland book, was it earlier this year? Last year? Whatever. When the debates came up in Congress on whether or not to go into a dual monetary system that was backed by both silver and gold, it's because of the Comstock lode that they were debating, including silver as a monetary backing for the U.S. dollar. That's how massive this find was. And Comstock gets all the credit. The Grosch brothers, I don't think I had ever heard of them before reading this book. Maybe it was rage over how little he actually received for his claim in relation to its eventual worth. Regardless, he is said to haunt the Ophir mine, both above and below the mine entrance, chasing away anyone who wanders near his claim. That's good. It is sweet. The maple syrup makes it sweet, but it's good. Now, Oberding goes on to describe Sandy and Eiley Bowers. Now, these people I am familiar with. They were the first couple to become millionaires off the Comstock lode. Like millionaires back in 1870s dollars. Also the first to return to rags after the riches were wasted on frivolous purchases, let's call them. Now, after Sandy died, the couple's daughter Persia died, and this, in effect, left Eiley all alone. And she went a little bonkers. But she also did what a great many women who suddenly found themselves with no means of support did. She became a medium, using her peepstone, a.k.a. crystal ball, to commune with the dead. And she became quite good at it, very effective, garnering a solid reputation as a seeress and entering Nevada folklore. Bowers Mansion still exists in Washoe Valley. You can still visit it as a historic landmark. They do tours. They'll talk about the ghost of Persia and Eiley and how this came to be. It's not in Virginia City, but Eiley was a frequent visitor to Virginia City and allegedly predicted one of the great fires that wiped out like all the buildings on C Street, which is the main drag down Virginia, the main drag in a town that has no stoplights, literally. You can't really discuss Virginia City without discussing its most famous resident, Samuel Clemens, aka Mark Twain, who took up residency and was a local journalist for a while, even providing a graphic description of an execution, one of the more famous executions actually, that of John Millian for the murder of Comstock courtesan Julia Boulette. Julia was murdered on January 20th, 1867. She was beaten to death in her residence. Millian maintained his innocence to the end, and he may well have been. He was French, like from France, not just of French descent, but like French, and barely spoke English. So on the day of his execution, he addressed the crowd in French and said basically he didn't know what he was confessing to because he didn't speak the language, and the confession was basically coerced out of him by the sheriff. Didn't matter, he was hung on April 23rd, 1868. And Twain witnessed it and wrote a lengthy and eloquent recitation of what the execution entailed. And I believe both Boulette and Millian are known to haunt the Silver Terrace cemeteries, which is an absolutely huge proposition. It covers multiple hills in Virginia City. It's fascinating to walk. There's a lot of history up there. The cemetery is said to be quite haunted, not just with Boulette and Millian, but many, many ghosts are known to reside there. So well known for this that you have to jump through many very difficult hoops to get permission to visit the graveyard after dark. They lock it up at night, and people caught there afterwards will be charged with trespassing at the bare minimum. Probably not cited. I feel like they actually arrest you, but I haven't been arrested up there for that, so I don't know, but maybe. It's good enough. Let's top this off and finish up the rest. Oh, there's barely 2 servings. There we go. Most of the hotels in town are haunted, well known. There's also one just down the hill in Gold Hill, Nevada. So you have Virginia City, and then Gold Hill is like not even a half mile away, but it's technically its own town. The Gold Hill Hotel, famously haunted. Most of the buildings in town are haunted, believe it or not. I think it's because Virginia City was always a place of high passions. That's really good. You can barely taste the whiskey. The maple syrup just... Actually, if I had known that, I probably wouldn't have gone with the Toxic Masculinity bourbon for this one. Turn that so you can see the bottle. Because this is a pretty solid bourbon. It has excellent flavor. Yeah, I probably would have gone with a much cheaper bourbon if I'd known I was going to be killing off the bottle with it. Because it's decently priced. It's like a $60 bottle of bourbon. So, kind of feel bad that it's masked underneath the whiskey. Or underneath the maple syrup. Yeah, see, the whiskey's going right to my head. What can I say? So the Fourth Ward School is now a museum, but that's said to be haunted. Virginia City Middle School, Silver State National Peace Officers Museum, used to be the Story County Jail, that's haunted. There's the very infamous suicide table at the Delta Saloon, St. Mary's Art Center, Piper's Opera House, Mackey Mansion, St. Mary's in the Mountains is the Catholic Church, St. Paul's Episcopal Church, the Chawler Mansion. All of these are said to be very haunted. The author thinks that Virginia City may actually be the most haunted town in America. And I mean, if you believe or you don't believe, it's any place, like I said, any place where there are high passions for extended periods of time are going to be haunted, right? Virginia City certainly had that because it was an exciting place to be. It was a mining town. There were fights over who had what claim. There were silver stagecoach robbers that I mentioned, or that one was in the book I read a few years ago on the Old West, Hauntings in the Old West. I don't remember the name of it, but I'll find it and I'll put it up here, where he talks about the stagecoach robber who is said to haunt the 6 Mile Canyon, which is one of the streets that branches out into Dayton and Lyon County? Yes, Lyon County. All of these are said to be haunted. Most of the business buildings and a significant chunk of the residences are haunted. And the book is filled with anecdotal evidence, and obviously that's all you're really going to get is anecdotal evidence. Nobody really knows what causes hauntings, what makes people see these things. Nobody knows if it's real or if it's just the product of an overactive imagination. My personal theory is that it's a byproduct of the multiverse, that where you see hauntings is where the multiverses are kissing up against each other, and so one is bleeding over to the other and you're getting these residual effects. That's my personal theory on hauntings. It works for me. It makes me happy to think this because it makes me happy and sad because it means that somewhere out there there's condemned criminals who were instead granted a life pardon. On the other hand, there are also places like the Madame Lalaurie in New Orleans. Yeah, if you ever watched American Horror Story season 3 Coven, Madame Lalaurie was a real person, brilliantly portrayed by Kathy Bates in that show, but she was even more horrifying than shown in that show, if you can believe it. So my multiverse theory runs into a brick wall of karma when you consider that there may still be somewhere in the multiverse people who are being as horribly brutalized as they were under Madame Lalaurie. But I think it's possible. So that's horrifying. Well, that took a fucking dark turn real fast, didn't it? Most of the spirits in Virginia City are harmless. Some are hostile, but other than dropping things or tapping people on the head, the occasional licentious butt pinch, as found in Piper's Opera House, is more of a feeling or sensation than proof positive of anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are, like I said, plenty of anecdotes of spectral presences and physical manifestations, and what's really interesting is not all of them are from the 19th century. There was this meme going around about not having no ghosts from 2007. Well, Virginia City has one from at least 1990, so it's not impossible. This book was entertaining. It had a lot of local history, a lot of local lore, and while it's clear that Oberding is a believer, she doesn't scoff at the skeptics. She admits that it can be hard to believe without proof, and proof can be hard to come by when dealing with spirits because spirits work on their own timeline. They don't just show up because you ask them to. I mean, sometimes they do. But mostly it's just a sensation. And it could be the product of an overactive imagination, or it could be the multiverse kissing up against each other, or it could be ghosts, right? So I quite enjoyed this book. Even if you're not much of a ghost hunter, the history was fun to read. And if you are a ghost hunter, Oberding directs you to where you might have the most success in having an encounter. Oh, I just realized that one of my dad's best friends had a house in Virginia City for a long time. I should ask him if he ever felt it was haunted. Why didn't I ask him that? I saw him this last weekend. Not this week, like last weekend, because my sister got married. I should have asked him, hey Rich, do you ever see any ghosts when you're living in Virginia City? Damn it, why didn't I ask him that? Anyways, that's it for this week. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys next Sunday. I finished off 1 cup, but 2 cups was a little much for me, so I'm going to have to parse this out while I edit. See you guys next Sunday. Bye.